Of course, as we think about improving techniques characteristically of the world in which we live, we think of using new communications devices. With our overloaded teachers and our overloaded curricula, with the many new things there are to teach in a complex society, it makes sense to reach out and employ the new technology. There's a large body of knowledge, a large body of materials, and a large body of skilled people who've learned to use them and are willing and anxious to teach others to use them.
I want to begin by offering a rather convenient and idealized model of literacy, around which many traditional composition classrooms are structured. Students get curious and begin investigating. Once they have the inklings of something they might want to say, they begin to write it down or to type it up. Hopefully, at some point, students begin to realize the recursive relationship between ideas and language. Trying to create balanced arguments, appropriate tone, a professional, personal, or academic voice are all quite complicated endeavors at the level of language construction. These processes are effectively complicated by issues of citation, illustration, and other generic conventions. However, it can often be difficult for students to perceive literacy practices as situated. This is especially true when teachers limit the scope of textual production merely to paper and word-processed texts. Material conditions of production and reception are too often taken for granted or ignored. Student skepticism about the relevance of these types of classroom practices is understandable. So, let's return to those 4 areas of literacy practices I've mentioned: ideas, language, production, and reception.
Some things are hard to understand, and some things can't be learned by reading. That's what this film is about, problems in teaching. And all of these problems and many others have existed in education for many years. Teachers everywhere, teachers of every kind of subject matter have sought the answers.
As humans, we are meaning-making animals. We're curious about the world. We're restless with things to say, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. But it's difficult to enter into a discussion about the concept of ideas without somehow butting up against language. It seems that we have manifested our meaning-making tendencies primarily in structures of verbal language. This isn't to say that we have nothing to show for it. However, this privileging of verbal language over other strategies of communication has a downside. There are some concepts that don't lend themselves very well to verbal communication. Have we, then, arrived at the edge of composition's purview? Not necessarily.
You get some idea of the vexing nature of the teacher's problem when you realize that some things just aren't easy to explain. Try telling a child, for example, that a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. Well, when you ask him next Friday on the quiz, he'll tell you that a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, but the chances are he doesn't know what he's saying and doesn't really understand the process.
Of course, each discipline and profession has its own writing history. The problem is that old definitions of literacy, focusing merely on the verbal, are incomplete. Educators have known this for a long time. They've responded by combining multiple modes of communication into the texts they use in their classrooms. 40 years ago, authors and students had little opportunity to participate in the material production of their texts. It required too many resources and too much skilled knowledge. But creators have always yearned for more control of the design and production of their work, and technology has always, eventually responded. The printing press developed into the typewriter, which is the precursor to the modern word processor. Vinyl records became audio tapes, compact discs, and now MP3 files. The same goes for photography, from the first camera obscura to today's digital cameras. But there was more going on than Christmas snapshots and reunion videos. Bands began recording and producing more of their own music. Low-budget documentaries and short films proliferated. Zines and chapbooks hummed out of printers. Now, the vanishing point for these various media seems to be emerging, and that approaching horizon is digital. Personal computers, editing software, more affordable technology, and the internet are converging to make multimedia texts a real possibility, and a powerful one, for lots of people. The explosion of blogs and YouTube videos are perfect examples. Then again, if YouTube and personal blogs exemplify anything, it's that there's something essential missing from most contemporary textual production. And that's where our work begins, working together to expand what we know about the consumption of multimedia, and to put that knowledge to work, finally, as designers of these texts.